Louise, I've got 6:30. Channel 18's all set.
Okay. All right. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Barnstable Conservation Commission. Before I open our hearings for this evening, I am asking George to call the roll.
Abadili.
Present.
Foster.
Present.
Gilmore present. Hearn.
Present.
Lee is absent tonight. Moran.
Present.
Sampu.
Present.
Administrator Darcy Carley.
Present.
And staff member Kim Kavanaugh.
Present.
We have a quorum, Madam Chairman, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Acting under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and Chapter 237 of the Code of the Town of Barnstable, the Barnstable Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, October 25th, 2022, at 6:30 on the applications of Susan Moore, Morgenthau, trustee, Deborah Stepino, Michael W. and Judith M. Berry, Hurley Family Limited Partnership, Charles J. and Barbara U. Birdsley, Washington SGG Nominee Trust, and Lawrence S. Feinberg. The hearings will be held remotely as televised on Channel 18. The plans and applications are on file and may be reviewed by scheduling an appointment by email to Darcy Carley at 230 South Street, Hyannis. darcy.carley@town.barnstable.mass.us. This meeting is being recorded and transmitted by the Information Technology Department of the Town of Barnstable on Channel 18 under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20. Anyone else desiring to make such a recording or transmission, please let Channel 18 or me know. I know of none. This evening's hearing agenda is posted on the town's website. On the agenda next to each application is the amount owed to the town of Barnstable for the cost of advertisement. Please send your check to Conservation Division at 230 South Street before the hearing. The Conservation Commission's public hearing will be held by remote participation as a result of an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed by the Lieutenant Governor on July 16, 2022, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Remote public access to this hearing shall be provided in the following manner. The hearing will be televised on Channel 18. Real-time public comment can be addressed to the Conservation Commission utilizing the Zoom link 834-2340-6466 or using the toll-free phone number 888-475-4499 as shown on the agenda. The public can also email their comments to Darcy Carley at least 8 hours prior to the hearing. Tonight we have 3 RDAs and 4 NOIs. However, the hearing for Washington SGG Nominee Trust will likely be postponed since the applicants have requested a continuance until November 1st. So let's begin. Susan, the first RDA is Susan Moore, Morgenthau, trustee. Replace split rail fence at 710 Seaview Avenue, Osterville, as shown on Assessor's Map 114 parcel 013. The RDAs are our simpler applications, and so you can either go into some detail about your proposal or just entertain questions from the commissioners. Up to you.
You ready for me?
I'm ready.
Chuck Rowland, Sullivan Engineering Consulting. I'm just going to pull up the plan here. Couldn't everyone see the screen?
Not yet.
All right, let me know when.
Now we can. We
Great.
can.
So Sullivan Engineering Consulting, I'm representing the owners of 710 Seaview Avenue. I'm sure you guys have driven by this place a million times. Presently, the site is developed with a dock under SE3 1400. And we are asking to replace the existing split rail fence. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
All right. Commissioners, questions, comments?
I'm just going to confirm something, Chuck. I'm looking at the plan with the orange dots. I take it, that's what I looked, that's what I saw, but I guess there's remnants of the fence there. Maybe parts of it are more deteriorated than others, but is there a particular method involved with putting the fence in, or is it going to be done by hand, or can you give us just a brief summary of that?
Just typical split rail construction. Post hole digger, drop in the post, put in the 2 split rails, move on to the next post.
Okay. And this is a property without a house on it. It's just the dock and pier. Is that right?
That is correct. It's
Yeah.
associated with an abutter.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Commissioner?
Just have a question, Louise, or a comment. I would just like to be notified if there was any reason that any trees or vegetation had to be removed for the replacement, just so we have notification, please.
Make sure people know that.
Okay. Channel 18, is there any public comment? Channel 18?
Seeing none.
Okay, thanks. Could I have a motion to approve this project as a negative determination?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Sam Poop,
Aye.
Moran,
Aye.
Hearn,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Abadili,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Very much.
Okay, next is Douglas Catino, demolition and rebuild of existing 385 square foot deck at 15 Princess Pine Road, Hyannis, as shown on Assessor's Map 269, parcel 088.
Hi, yes,
Hi,
good evening. I have this project here. It's a deck, an existing deck, and it was built. With KD instead of a pressure treated, and it's starting to rot out. The way they built it, I don't know exactly the year, but it's been here at least since 2014. And they didn't have the footings back then, so it will be needed an additional footings and a rebuilt and using pressure treated wood.
Douglas, can you state your name and your address just for the record for us?
Okay, it's Douglas DePino, 15 Princess Pine Road, Hyannis, Massachusetts, 02601.
Thank you.
okay, commissioners, questions, comments?
Quick question. Mr. DePino, I assume, I gather from this that this is exactly the same footprint, same size as what is existing. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Thank you. I thought so. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Channel 18, are there any public comments? Channel 18?
Seeing none.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a motion to approve this project as a negative determination?
So,
Second.
Roll call?
Moran,
Aye.
Sam Poop,
aye.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn.
Aye.
That's unanimous, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Next is Michael W. and Judith M. Berry. Build sunroom with existing footprint at 288 Neck Road, Centerville as shown on Assessor's Map 252, Parcel 133. Who's representing the Berries? Anyone? Well, let's table this and, oh, sorry.
How we're muted.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is Judith Berry and Michael Berry.
Good, thank you. Welcome. So are you going to speak to your project?
Yes, we had a tree that uprooted and went through our glass solar room last October. And we would like to replace that solar room with a new solar room on exactly the same footprint. And it is the upper level of a storage unit underneath.
Okay. You want to say anything else, or that's pretty good?
I think on this map right here is the work limit line is going to be the deck underneath. So that the contractor's line cannot go past where the deck ends. Right there.
Mm-hmm.
And the project site is
And it's the same footprint as,
exactly the same footprint.
okay. Commissioners, would you like to ask any questions?
No questions.
Okay. Channel 18, are there any public comments?
Seeing none.
Okay. Darcy, are you fine with this?
I am, thank you.
Okay.
Motion for a negative determination?
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Abadili,
Yes.
Foster,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Byrne,
Aye.
Moran,
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
That's unanimous, Madam Chair.
Okay, on to the NOI. Early Heat Family Limited Partnership, completed existing shed, proposed fencing, fund, wall repair, and buffer land management and restoration at 103 Valentine Avenue, Centerville, as shown on Assessor's Map 229, parcel 008.
This is Josh.
So,
Hi, this is Katrine from Wilkinson Ecological Design. I believe Chuck is here too.
yep, he is. Chuck?
It was.
There he is.
Sorry about that. Chuck Rowland, Sullivan Engineering. Heard my name getting called. It's just the other room. You guys got through the RDAs quicker than I thought. Chuck Rowland, Sullivan Engineering Consulting. Assuming you guys have all been to the property, it's abutting Long Pond in Centerville. Site is about an acre of land developed with a single family dwelling. We were in front of you guys within the last year under DA 21045 for the approval to construct a foundation wall under a portion of the existing dwelling, replace, expand the existing patios, second floor deck driveway, and walkway modifications. The wetland resources at this site are land under water bodies and BVW. And the project as proposed is to permit the existing shed, proposed fenced, pond wall repairs and buffer zone, land management and restoration, which is done by Wilkinson. The existing shed was constructed generally where the existing concrete pad was located in the previous filing. Repair of the stone wall will be done by hand in resetting loose stones and replacing broken mortar. About 2 15 to 20 foot sections have deteriorated from vegetation growing into the wall and breaking it apart. Construction of the garden fences to reduce and discourage trespassing, which has become a problem when the house was mostly unoccupied by the previous owners and during construction. And then invasive management buffer zone enhancement plan and land management plan is provided by Wilkinson. And I will share my screen with you real quick. So we have the existing shed over the previous patio, concrete pad, proposed fence, the repairs, and then we have generally the Wilkinson stuff, which is under this plan. And then I'll leave that kind of up to Katrine.
Sure, I can take you through our proposed work. So we're proposing 10,700 square feet of invasive removal and native plant restoration. And you can see those two specific areas identified in green on our restoration plan. We also provided a land management plan that describes the existing conditions in both areas and also the proposed work in both areas, both that southern and northern project area. Overall, when you look at both areas, there's a fairly intact native plant community. We have a lot of different native trees such as holly, elm, white pine, eastern red cedar, cherry, and oak. There are some non-native trees, but for the most part, it's a nice intact native tree canopy. And then when you look at the herbaceous and the shrub layer, that's really where it becomes highly invaded. There's 7 species listed on MyPAG's invasive list as a state listed invasive species, and 2 of those are on the prohibited list for transporting and whatnot. So when you look at what specifically they are, there's bittersweet, burning bush, Japanese honeysuckle, privet, English ivy, garlic mustard, multiflora rose, vinca, Norway maple. It's not a huge area, but there's a lot of really highly invasive species. So we propose to remove all the invasive species and then replant according to the plan, the restoration plan. And you'll see we'd like to plant tupelo trees and shrubs such as arrowwood, bayberry, leucothaway, red chokeberry, and clethra. And then because we were really excited in particular about this project because it is on the edge of a pond. We're not on a coastal bank where there's more of a limited plant palette. So we really got excited on the possibility of adding different herbaceous species here, really focused on encouraging pollinators in the area. During the summer when we were doing field work, there were a lot of butterflies. So adding more species, more herbaceous species like Joe pieweed, swamp milkweed, asters, turtlehead will just encourage more and more pollinators in the area. So we feel that this is a great opportunity. You know, as I mentioned, there's a nice native tree canopy, but really getting in there and strengthening the shrub and the herbaceous layer is really what our goal is in this project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, sounds good. Commissioners.
Comment would be an outstanding project.
Yep. Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, I have a comment, possibly, you know, I'm always really protective of the 0 to 50, and I see that the concrete pad is it looks smaller than what they're doing, what the existing shed is. However, that being said, the amount of mitigation is really impressive, and I'm thinking I have no problem with the project. So this would be an exception for Bill Hearn.
Okay, sounds good.
I'd just like to comment in that, you know, we've discussed this before, Bill and I've discussed it before as well. My sense is what we should look at these things is when we balance what is being asked for against what is being given and its impact on the environment. And clearly, I think Bill and I would both agree in this one, there's no question that the positives of this significantly outweigh any potential negatives of expanding in the 50. So that's where I'm coming from, Bill.
Yeah, I'm there. This is unusual, though. I think it. Anyway.
Okay. Anyone else? Channel 18?
Oh, I do.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Wait.
Right.
Yes, this is a question for Katrine. As far as working down at the edge of the lake, are you working in any of the bordering vegetated wetland? Because the reason I'm asking that is if we want to have the commission, or I recommend a special condition about this being staying under Wilkinson, like any notification of any change of the contractor for the restoration, but also the close proximity to the lake. Do we want to also state that this needs to be done by a SERP qualified consultant in the future in case anybody wants to change out the consultant? So could you just answer that about the proximity to any bordering vegetated wetland, or are you right on the edge? Or
I believe we're right on the edge because there's the wall there, but I don't know, Chuck, I can't necessarily see where the BVW is on our plan. I don't know, Chuck, if you know specifically. I see edge of lake at bottom of wall. But we'd be happy to, those conditions work for us.
okay. So I would recommend the commission state that any change in contractor, and they need to be SERP qualified, and 3-year monitoring reports, or annual monitoring reports for 3 years, please.
Also, what is the fence height going to be? And will there certainly be 6 inches below the fence?
They were asking for a garden fence, and it was like kind of like similar to a pool fence type, but we're happy with 4 inches below or 6 inches below, whatever
Yeah.
preference is.
So when you find out exactly what fence type it is, could you just run it by Darcy to make sure he's happy with it?
Okay.
Okay.
If you're okay with if you'll approve a pool type fence, then we have to make an adjustment.
Okay.
Should kind of
Pool type fence could be a lot of different things, I think.
As long as you let them go to Darcy, as long as she's happy with it, that should be fine. With
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing we would state is if right along the edge in the 50-foot buffer, if we could have it raised 6 inches.
6 inches.
Okay.
So we might, let's see, you have proposed 4-foot tall garden fence. You might want to just, on a revised plan, just say it's a 6-inch clearance.
Okay.
Thank
In
you.
that area.
Okay, channel 18, are there any public comments?
Seeing none.
Okay, so could I have a motion to approve this as submitted with the addition that there will be annual reports on the progress of landscaping, that if there's a change in the landscaper, that change will be qualified and obviously reported to the office. Could I have a
And then
I'm sorry,
6 inches, you want a 6-inch gap underneath it, right?
on a revised plan.
revised plan with a 6-inch gap underneath the fence?
And 3-year monitoring,
Beg your pardon?
3-year monitoring also.
I think she had that already.
Annual reports.
And
So moved.
wait, I'm sorry, hold on.
Sorry,
I know.
Darcy.
And beside the consultant, that any consultant would have to be a SERP qualified.
Okay.
So I'm in the motion to include that and make the motion. I'm sorry I jumped in, Darcy.
You're okay.
Second?
Second the motion.
Okay, roll call.
Gabadili?
Aye.
Foster?
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn?
Aye.
Wait, I'm sorry. We got to stop a second. This is NHESP Habitat. I'm not aware that we received the letter. We cannot do you could vote for approval, but you have to wait for the NHESP letter. Phew, sorry, I apologize.
Have we received it yet, Chuck?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
So we had correspondence with them because they had asked about some other kind of qualification. It was clearly someone that was they even admitted that they were new at NHESP. I'm just looking at my email real quick. Thank you for, all I got was, thank you for the clarification. So I will reply back to them saying that we haven't received the approval yet.
So amend the motion to approve this, but with a continuance until we receive the NGSP letter.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Yeah, do we need a date on that?
Need a
Chuck?
date.
Yeah, we need a date. Continue to.
Yeah, I don't want to have to continue it till I don't, let's just plan on the 1st if there's still an opening.
Yep, there is.
Great.
So continue to November 1st.
Thank you.
Well, we have
We gotta vote it.
We're in the middle of voting. Do we need to?
So Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Moore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Sample.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, Charles J. and Barbara U. Birdsey. Patio expansion and proposed rent station with associated mitigation plannings at 177 Long Beach Road, Centerville, as shown on Assessors Map 205, parcel 028.
Good evening, Chairperson and members of the commission. My name is Dan Ojala. I'm a land surveyor and civil engineer with Down Cape Engineering in Yarmouthport, and helping Barbara Birdsey out with a modest patio expansion here at her site at 177 Long Beach Road over in Centerville. I'll share my screen here to be able to point. The site is fairly typical for these. It's a long peninsula that runs between the Centerville River, Long Beach Road, and the Nantucket Sound. So there's a number of resource areas. There's, of course, the Centerville River, which has an inner and outer riparian zone associated with it. We've got that pretty much covering the whole site. But again, we're highly developed, and the Rivers Act is fairly lenient on developed sites. And I'll go over that briefly. The other resource areas are a flood zone on the site. We've got a coastal beach transitioning to a coastal dune, which is delineated here along the work limit line. There's a lawn right up to a long maintained edge here. So we're dealing with a dry resource area that's not particularly sensitive to siltation. But we are maintaining a work limit line nonetheless down along the property lines and then back up along the lawn edges to contain any construction silt on the property. There's a slope down to our driveway here. And so there is, quite a few resource areas, but what I would say is that we're working in an area that's already developed, and we're making the situation better. You had mentioned earlier that you look at the trade-off and so forth, and I think your mitigation calculations do bear out that when you do allow even a modest expansion in hardscape, you get a nice return. In this case, we're transforming lawn areas into mitigation plantings, which should be a better wildlife habitat than a manicured lawn, of course. So what we're looking at is there's an existing patio there that's just a little bit undersized. It's just awkwardly small. So just out into the existing lawn, not clearing any native vegetation or anything, a modest expansion of patio. It looks like, and then there's a small rinse station. Right now, the rinse station is against the existing patio and doesn't serve them very well. So we're going to move that over to the west lot line. And that's basically just a fence with some pervious bottom. So, but nonetheless, we count it as hardscape, say it's gravel. So we're looking, and that's between the 50 and the 100 off of the coastal dune. And that's a modest 30 square feet. And then the increase in patio is only 175 square foot, but you multiply that 175 by 4 because it's within the 50. And so we do need a variance to work in this area. And the 30 by 3, you get 790 square foot of mitigation required, and we're providing 850, so an excess number. There's a good palette of various plants chosen from the for their coastal resiliency from the county plant list. Be some temporary shredded mulch until they infill and take over the area, and then perhaps some additional plantings as needed in this area here. But the 850 is fully measured within the areas indicated by the hatch on the drawing. There's some notes. There is some bittersweet that could creep in, so we're going to manage that a little bit. We'll have a licensed applicator on it. There's some general planting notes. Our narrative goes over the various resource areas, the coastal dune, the rivers, the river, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and your Chapter 237 compliance. And again, perhaps of most interest is those mitigation calculations, which do, when you're putting an increase in hardscape, you offset it greatly so that the environment is indeed enhanced rather than hurt by the work that's being done. Again, it's a highly developed site. I think you're getting a good mitigation package. And I think it meets all your regulations. I would certainly be glad. We did add a few notes. Some of the staff and counselors had gone over it. We added a few notes, a few features that we'd missed, like the trellis and so forth, labeled the generator and so forth. So those notations were made on the 21st. Other than that, it's identical plan. I would be very glad to answer any questions that I'm able to. Thank you.
I have a question about the storage box that's out there on the beach.
Yes.
What's the history and so forth on that?
The owner, it was a little bit fuzzy in her mind, but it's been there for a little while, but she doesn't recall getting specific permission for it. But it's a modest size, short little box, and it does save a lot of legwork, lugging back and forth. So if it could stay there, would sure appreciate it. But certainly up to the commission if that's an issue.
I feel that it really shouldn't be there. I don't know how the other commissioners feel about it. Bill.
I do have a concern with this project. It is an expansion into the 0 to 50, and unlike I hate to compare projects, but the other project it had, there was an old concrete thing there, and it was a very small, tiny increase. And then there was this, it seemed like, I don't know what, a 30-to-1 mitigation ratio. And here we have a patio that's being expanded. It's an increase in hardscape in the 0 to 50. And our bylaw basically suggests that, except for really unusual circumstances, we don't want to promote the expansion in the 0 to 50. And so I guess I have a real problem with that, that patio. However, the rinse station, I don't have a problem. It's out of the 0 to 50.
Anyone else? Larry?
Yeah, mute myself. I'm going back to the balancing test that was discussed a few minutes ago. When I went to the property twice because I really tried to visualize it and then came back and studied the plan and had to go back again. And so I'm looking now, Dan, that you described this thing sort of looks like a fancy pipe going around the edges of the patio. And what you're telling me, I think you said it was 150 square feet. Is that right, approximately?
The expansion 0 to 50 is 175. It's going from 1610 to 1785. But it's in a highly developed area that's existing, turf lawn right now. So yeah. It's not like it's a virgin site, and there's a fence seaward of this. You use a lawn boy and put down fertilizer. It's not a situation where you're cutting virgin material by any event. I mean, this is the
no, I don't dispute that. I'm just looking, Dan, at the hardscape,
Mhm.
and let's talk about that just for a minute. That's a good picture of it, by the way. So the other thing that I'm looking at is that this area here, this is pretty steep actually. So I take it it's a flight of steps coming up. And I don't know how wide you want that to be, 3 or 4 feet, but coming up from the driveway right there, that's pretty steep, at least for somebody in my stage of life. But aside from that, this is area that is just grass, and you're proposing to put vegetation there, almost completely covering it, with the exception of the walkway. And that's a significant benefit from my point of view. And does that benefit give us something back that we might not have otherwise gotten but for this relatively minor request of expansion? I don't disagree with Bill Hearn on his concerns. I think he articulates them well. I'm just saying I'm looking at a balance here. Moving the rent station away from one area and moving it just outside the 50, that's a slight benefit. The other thing that that I thought about, I'm looking at the vegetation here along the fence. I suppose more vegetation could be created, say, right in this area across here, all low-lying vegetation. I'll leave that up to you, Dan, how you want to address that. But I'm balancing this out. This is a beautiful property. It's really neat. Built before John Abadili and I came into the world, but more importantly, that it's well maintained. And so I'm supportive of it based upon the fairness and the balance that has been proposed. And if other commissioners feel they would like more mitigation, I think there's room here to do it that would not disadvantage the Ms. Birdse's use of the property. Something to consider. So that's where I am on it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, John, thank you.
Thank you, Louise. A couple of comments. Again, I sort of start with Bill, that anything that's an expansion within the 0 to 50 of hardscape, even Dan, over grass, hardscape over grass is not much of a trade. So your argument that, oh, it's all pre-existing law, we're not thinking of pushes, doesn't carry a lot of weight with me. It is an expansion within 0 to 50. We should look at it very, 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 maybe suspiciously is the wrong word, but very carefully, and find out what we're getting in return for that. And is it a better deal after in terms of protecting or the 0 to 50 and serving its function than prior to the requested change? In this case, I see two things. One, I see a heavily, heavily vegetated bank that exists already, which makes me very happy. I look at the mitigation being offered, and I have two comments on that. Excuse me. I have two comments on that. Number one is that I think you put it into an already heavily, heavily vegetated area. So I think the mitigation being offered should go more, instead of that area right there, which is very heavily vegetated, should go more along the waterfront line where the walkway is, towards that area. Secondly, if there is going to be some kind of path, it should be donated in terms of width and structure, et cetera. Was no, I couldn't find any specs on the proposed path. So I could support it if the mitigation was relocated.
So what I would say through the chair, or Mr. Sampu, I guess had his hand up first.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing these hands
Yeah, Peter has hand up.
from where I'm sitting. Oh, yeah, okay, Peter.
So I'd just like to quickly say I agree with Commissioner Abadili.
Okay.
So perhaps then this area here, and I think the last project too, what they do is they clean out invasives and do extra plantings in areas, and that's what creates a very high number in terms of mitigation. What here we're doing is actually peeling up turf and putting in plantings. And all we would do for the path would just simply to be leave it grass. You know, right now they walk up there, they continue to walk up there. So would just saw cut the edge of the sod and just leave it in place and plant all around it. But yeah, sure. So this is all bittersweet in here that really doesn't want to be there. It's an invasive plant. It chokes everything out, and so if we were to replace this bittersweet with additional planting, so that would be this entire area inside the work limit line.
Dan, I think excuse me, Dan, I didn't mean to interrupt, I apologize, but if you show that other picture where the walkway is, you
Yes.
get a long view of that.
Oh, this one here?
Yeah, just show that you've got a picture that kind of shows where that is. If you could pull that up, Dan, that would, I think, help me and the other commissioners see what I was talking about.
Yeah.
There's a
So
yeah.
that's in the, let me see what we've got here.
Yeah.
So this is the area that we would alternately also infill with some vegetation. There's a couple of rugosa roses in there. I don't think they did too well with the drought this summer, but
I guess what I was trying to do is you start to
now
look
let me
along
see
where
if I've
the
got
walkway
everything
is.
here. This is the other side. Yeah,
This
we've
is the
got
other
everything.
picture.
Oh,
That-
there
Right
it
that
there.
is.
Stop
There it
right
is.
there.
That's
That's what I'm
existing.
talking. The
plant.
vegetation, the mitigation plantings, in my opinion, should be located in that area, which is far less shrubbed and protected than where you're proposed to put them. So I think in terms of the mitigation impact, as I weigh the balance between what you're asking for and that, I think it is significantly enhanced in your favor by relocating those plants to that area. And I think that's what Pete was saying, I think.
And that's what I was saying also. I was suggesting
Jim
it in a
Myrie.
different way. Yeah, I think we're all on the same page. We're just different paragraphs.
Bill Hearn has his hand raised, and then I have a comment too.
I do, and I'm not on the same page. I think it's a slippery slope. We have a bylaw that basically says let's try to keep hardscape out of our 0 to 50, and there's a good reason for that. Vegetation itself provides some capacity to remove nutrients, capacity to filter pollutants. And hardscape just simply does not do that. And so therefore, as we allow the encroachment of hardscape into our 0 to 50 or a patio, it just doesn't seem right. And I hear y'all, everyone, including Pete, suggesting, well, we want to weigh the pros and cons. And I think I just don't see allowing hardscape in the 0 to 50, an expansion for a patio. It's against, I don't know, I just feel it deep that it's not right. And I guess I'm not on the same page.
Okay, Pete,
Pete has his hand up, Louise.
I said, Pete,
Okay, so Bill, I'll try to defend the
Yes.
balance and the science behind it. If we don't allow the expansion of this patio, we have all this bittersweet, we've got minimal buffer plantings, woody vegetation along that top edge by the fence line. We don't gain anything. We don't gain anything if we say no to the patio. I really think we can gain something with Abo's observation that there is a better place for the mitigation. Yes, bittersweet is bad, but like we saw earlier tonight, taking care of invasives and getting good buffer, I think we can probably get this. Thank you.
Darcy,
Yes, thank you. I'm in total agreement with John's comments as far as I think we do gain something by getting the mitigation planting, but it definitely has to be adjusted on the lawn area near the walkway. The slope that he was showing near the driveway, it's going the wrong direction. The runoff would be going down towards the driveway versus where the mitigation would make sense. And I have a comment on the planting palette. If we went forward with the mitigation being adjusted, it's a lot of 1s and 2s. I'd like to see like some 3-gallon or 5-gallon mixed in. And I also had some concern on your general planting notes. I just want to make sure that when you talk about the planting beds shall receive shredded pine bark, that's just temporary. The homeowner understands that when you do this mitigation planting, it's going to be, once it goes in, be left natural, not be a planting bed. And another one of the notes talk about the material surviving 1 year. So we would want to have the 3-year monitoring report.
I would agree with all of Darcy's suggestions.
Okay, anyone else? Channel 18, do we have any comments from the public?
Seeing none.
All right. So do I have a motion to approve this proposal with the following qualifiers? First of all, we are using the revised plan dated the 21st of October as a reference. That the mitigation proposed will be relocated along the, I'm not quite sure how to define the location.
Mitigation plan, if I could suggest, Louise, that the mitigation plantings of an equal amount of that, which is roughly that 850 square feet, be relocated so that it runs along the existing, on either side of the existing walkway, and subject to a review by staff, review and approval by staff.
Right. And that the plants, many of the plants be at the 3 to 5 gallon size, again, approved by staff. That although pine bark may be used to get the plant started in the long term, mulch is not to be used in this area. It's to be untouched mitigation natural area, and that there will be 3-year annual monitoring. Have I missed anything?
And it's a submission of a revised plan, not this plan, the October 21st,
yeah.
but submission approved
Oh,
with a revised plan. And it sounds like for staff to approve.
Yes.
and also, I think that blocks on the beach there ought to be removed.
Oh, I would agree, or an enforcement order ought to be written on that.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
we can certainly agree to remove it. It's not a big item, and we don't need an enforcement order. We're law-abiding
All right.
citizens.
Can I,
It was
Okay, sounds good.
misunderstanding.
can I add one more thing?
Sure.
If, with the relocation of the mitigation, I'd like to see demarcation along the edge of that mitigation.
That's stones or something. Demarcation as approved by the staff, by the office. All
So
right.
that so moved, I guess, is the next step.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
A reluctant, tepid,
Reluctant type of what? We're still waiting, Bill. What?
yeah, I'm voting yes. Yeah, I'll
okay.
go with it.
We dragged it out of you, Bill.
Yeah, you really took a while to come out, Bill.
I'm going with it.
Warren,
Aye.
Sampu,
aye.
that's unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent, I
right.
appreciate it.
Next
Thank you.
up.
I'm going to stop sharing here so you can get the screen back.
Washington SGG Nominee Trust proposed improvements to include a pool house, tennis court, and driveway at 242 Washington Avenue, map 138, parcel 030. It's also abutting 25 East Avenue, map 139, parcel 080, and East 45 East Avenue in Osterville. There's been a request to continue this to November 11th, that correct, Chuck?
Yes, we would like to continue it without testimony.
Okay.
November,
It was first,
November 1st, I think.
What did I say?
It's
11.
11th. I think it's November
Sorry,
1st.
no, yeah, sorry, yeah, the first. November 1st. So, do I have a motion? for
Second.
this again?
It's been, motions made and been seconded, Madam Chairman.
Okay, roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Moran,
Aye.
Sampool,
Aye.
that's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. All right, Lawrence S. Feinberg, replacement of existing landscape tie retaining wall at 100 Harbor Road, Hyannis, is shown on Assessor's Map 306, parcel 173-007. Who do we have representing?
Dan,
Feinberg?
Yes, good evening again. Dan Ojala from Downkeep Engineering for the record. I'm a surveyor and a civil engineer with Downkeep Engineering in Yarmouthport, and helping Lawrence Feinberg out with a replacement of an existing landscape timber retaining wall that runs along the east side of his property here at 100 Harbor Road in Hyannis, Massachusetts. This is somewhat east of the Keys Memorial Beach. In fact, some of the beach extends to our south, and that generates the resource areas on the property. Aside from the flood zone, which does come onto the property, you've got a beach transition to a coastal dune. Brad Hall had flagged that out for us, and it's lawn pretty much right up, to the dune. There's just a short little existing path that runs through that down to the beach that they enjoy, very natural little path. And so we've introduced a work limit line around the wall to the east, nearest the sensitive resource areas, which would be the dry coastal dune to our south. And then that wall does wrap around. When the site was initially developed and so forth, you can see that it's cut in a bit. And so there's a retaining wall that needs need of repair. It's old and nearing the end of its design life. He's contracted with a local mason slash builder, and John Clancy of Barnstable Village. And we did reach out to ask, how he intended to do it. With many of these retaining walls, when they're starting to fail, they'll lean a little bit, but you pull the timbers out and the dirt tends to hold up fairly well. He's simply going to replace that directly, and he's also going to dig in by hand. All work is by hand. Some dead men to help stabilize it in the future. So it isn't, too much of a wall, but it does need to be there. Otherwise, it would be a significant slope and impede into the house and so forth. And as you can see, it does rise up behind that wall. So again, the most sensitive things that you'd probably focus on are the dune to the south, and that wall transitions to the end, somewhat short of that dune, and we'll wrap the work limit line tightly around the fence there to make sure that nothing gets south of that of the disturbance. That's the shorthand for it. I know you've got quite a few other matters, but and we could certainly submit a construction protocol outlining our discussion with him, if it's helpful to the board in their deliverances and in the approval. But again, no new hardscape. It's just replacing what's there. And I'd be glad to answer any questions if you do have them. Thank you.
Larry?
Thank you, Louise. Dan, I've really got only two questions, but they're significant, and you've addressed them already to some extent. The first question deals with, is this going to be for the entire wall all the way from the coastal dune to the street, or just the part at the east end of the house?
It's the whole length, because the timbers, even though some of them might not look that bad on the surface, there's been some rot, and they're ready to be replaced.
It's very evident. Yeah. Okay. So that being said, I too wondered about the back pressure of the soil behind the existing wall. It's probably quite a bit of it. I don't know how long that wall has been there, but so you were saying you're going to put a couple of dead men. I presume that's the equivalent of some sort of a post to sort of keep the new wall stabilized. Is that what you're thinking of doing?
Yeah, it would generally be a timber run into the bank and then a vertical one, post hold in to lock it in and make it act like one big unit rather than just falling over it. It stabilizes things like a tie back.
Okay. Now, doing that, would that involve some? I'm looking into the work protocol a little bit here. Would that involve some excavating or digging into the bank to get that installed?
Yeah, it would a little bit. It would a little bit hand digging, but he's going to do just one little section at a time
No,
and
I,
truck
I,
in and truck out with a wheel machine. But he told me it was all hand work. He's
I figured
but
that's what he was going to do, not do the whole thing all at once.
yeah,
Okay,
just whittle away.
those are the only questions I had. I could see if it wasn't constructed more bent with more strength behind the wall, I could see this not being much progress for you. So that's my question. I think the work protocol covers it, and I don't see any environmental impact that is of any concern, at least not to me. Thank you.
John? John?
Yeah, thank you, Louise. Dan, I think you sort of headed this one off, but I would be concerned with the construction of this because, you know, you start putting in dead men, you're going to have to dig back into the bank. You're going to have a potential disruption of vegetation, et cetera. So I think we need a condition that any vegetation that is damaged would be replaced in kind. I think we need to have a meeting with the staff to review the construction protocol before work begins. Other than that, I'm okay with it.
George?
Yeah, I agree, John. It'll be fairly minimal disturbance because it's all going to be handwork, but there will be some disturbance of that vegetation. And so I think a consultation with staff would be good.
I have a concern somewhere, and I can't find it now, but in my notes, I have that sort of quote unquote to be designed by others, and we really don't have a design here in writing. And I think the design is really critical given the topography of the material behind the wall. So, you know, I don't know if it would be appropriate. I mean, for us.
If I could just make a note, Louise. Yeah. So generally that would be if you have over a 4 foot of unbalanced fill, you need a certified civil engineer to design a wall. This is all a little under 4 feet. So we wanted to make sure that weren't putting a structural design out there with just the permit plan. But we could certainly submit his wall section for staff review. That would be no problem. And he might go with a couple of helical anchors. We could put a couple options there. That would be a little bit less disruptive, but we'll check in with Mr. Clancy and we could submit that for the record prior to construction if needed.
Yeah,
I think as long as it was an advanced meeting and as long as there was a condition about any damage plants, et cetera, would be replaced, be all right, I would think.
right. George, did you have your
Yeah,
hand?
no, I was just going to say the same thing. So
Okay. All right.
I just have a question.
Darcy?
Yes. What was the date of the flagging by Brad Hall? You did not put that on the plan.
It was. I can get that to you, but it looks like it was 4 flags on 6/23/22.
Okay. Can you add that to a revised plan? We do like to have the date.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners? Channel 18. Is there anyone who wants to make a comment?
None.
Okay. All right. So could I have a motion for approval, asking for a revised plan, which includes the date of Brad Hall's flagging, and that the design for the wall be submitted to the office for their approval before any work is done.
And that there be a construction protocol reviewed with staff prior to work being done, and additional condition that if there's any damage to plants that they be replaced in kind.
Okay.
And
Do I
this
have-
is an on-site meeting.
On that site meeting.
Okay.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Sampu,
Aye.
Moran,
Aye.
Hearn,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye, Foster,
Aye,
Abadili.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
okay,
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time.
all right. Moving on to continuances. Let's see, the first one, Michael F. Schultz, trustee, 299 Eagle River Road, Realty Trust, proposed single-family dwelling pool, cabana, and all associated appurtenances at 299 Eel River Road, Fosterville, as shown on Assessor's Map 115, parcel 003. This was continued from the 4th of October for receipt of an SE number, and we have one, which is SE 36044. So we're all set. We don't need to vote for this?
Yes, you do. You need a motion to release, having received the DEP, you need a motion to approve this and release the order of conditions.
Oh, all right. Would I have a second? Was that a motion?
Yeah,
moved.
it's a motion.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, the only people that can vote on this tonight are Commissioner Abadili, myself, Commissioner Hearn, and Commissioner Moore.
Okay, so roll call.
So my second didn't count.
No, your second didn't count, so I will second that.
Okay. Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye, Hearn,
Aye.
Warren.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next continuance is Cape Beach House LLC to construct a pool and patio and front porch at 27 Marshall Avenue, Hyannis Court, as shown on Assessor's Map 286, parcel 025, continued from the 4th of October for receipt of an SE number, and we have one, which is SE 36042. So, do I have a motion to?
Excuse me, Louise, George needs to tell us the quorum.
The quorum is Commissioner Abadili, Gilmore, Hearn, and Warren.
Okay.
Motion to approve the order subject with receipt of the DEP number and move to release the order of conditions.
Second.
Second.
Abadili,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye, Hearn,
Aye.
Warren.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one is Lisa M. Cleary, trustee, 3 Hayward Road, Realty Trust, to modify and expand existing patio at 3 Hayward Road, Centerville, as shown on Assessor's Map 186, parcel 064-001. This was continued from October 4th, 2022. George, do you want to?
Yep, the Commissioner Abadili, Commissioner Gilmore, Commissioner Hearn, and Commissioner Warren.
Okay, Chuck?
Chuck Rowland, Sullivan Engineering Consulting. Just pulling up the revised plan. So I reviewed the video from 10:4, and I added these additional plantings. So 2 inkberry hollies that are number 3 pots, 8 sweet fern, it's also number 3 pot, 3 St. John's wort, which is a number 3 pot, and 4 northern bayberry, which is a number 5 pot. And we scroll down, I have left the 8 number 3 inkberries here with the removal of the driveway and the replanting. And scroll down, we have on the riverside, we've taken this lawn area right here, which is the inkberry holly, 2 inkberry hollies, the 3 St. John's wort. We have right here the 3 northern bayberries. One thing I did not bubble, but it's here, is the 8 sweet fern that we have added to enhance this buffer strip. The 1 northern bayberry, which is right here. And then we have the 10-inch demarcation stones placed every 8 feet on center, running up the side here. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think I tried to cover everything that you guys brought up in the last hearing.
All right, John.
Yeah, I was out there today, transmitting with property. Let me just say a couple of things. Here is an expansion, I believe, within the 0 to 50. Is that correct?
There is no there's no additional hardscape in the 0 to 50.
It was all within the 50 to 100?
No, we're adding patio and removing driveway, and they're both in the 0 to 50.
Okay, here is a good example. If that was it, I would be absolutely opposed to any expansion in the 0 to 50 because we are not getting much with the removal of the driveway on a salt marsh versus the lack of vegetation along the Centerville River, which is, as you know, a very terrible shape. We need to protect that. So clearly, Bill, this is one, if they stop there, I would say absolutely this is a lose-lose from an environmental point of view, and it's not a good trade-off. So then I said to myself, I'd like to see significant mitigation moved to along the Centerville River, where as I walked that property, all I saw was a flower bed with irrigation in it and very, very little protection of vegetation protecting the Centerville River. I also saw a boat stored underneath the dock right on the grass that I would ask for you to remove. So, you know, even when I see the revised plan with the mitigation, as I look at it, put on the side, not on the Centerville River side, I still have a lot of problem allowing any expansion within the 0 to 50. Any change of hardscape within the 0 to 50. And I think that the regulations would clearly support those arguments, in my opinion.
I thought that we kind of discussed it, and I provided what we kind of talked about the last hearing, but
well, again, I'd look to Darcy, I guess, or somebody to tell me where, you know, I mean, if I saw a plan by Wilkinson or somebody, you know, a replanting plan or a planting plan in front of the Centerville River along that would really make me happy. I'm not smart enough to look at where you put some of these proposed native plantings along the side of the property, not along the riverside.
Well, this is along the riverside that we've added them right along here.
Right along the front, and then you've added some along the side of the property, no?
Yep, we've added some.
So ones along the side of the property aren't nearly as beneficial as the ones that we're going to have, you know, separating that lawn from the Centerville River. And again, I go back to the argument I made before that I'm looking at a balancing of how are you improving the 0 to 50 versus the changes you're asking for in the 0 to 50. Right now, Chuck, I'm sorry, I don't see the benefit that would sway me that way. That's kind of where I'm coming from. Also, as I say, you got a boat stored under the dock there, as I saw. That's got to be taken out of there.
I think that boat that is underneath the dock washed up, and I don't think it's being stored there, but I will make sure the client is aware that they're going to have to take it out of there.
Thank you, Chuck.
George?
Yes, thanks, Louise. You know, I went over this one also and looked at the last film. And it seems to me like this is what we asked for, Chuck, and John. But Darcy, maybe you could chime in, but I thought that this was going to do what we asked him to do.
I can only state it seems to be addressing what the commission asked.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Sorry.
Doesn't mean we can't change our mind a little, George.
Larry?
Um, I recollect the same thing as George. The notes that I took is that the driveway configuration was going to be changed. The vegetation and the edge of the driveway was going to be changed coming into the property. I believe on the right side coming in, which is on the left side of this plan, there really isn't much room to do anything there. As you get close to the front of the Centerville River end of the property. This property we had both an enforcement order and an NOI a year and a half ago or so. So this is not new property to us, and it appears to me that the vegetation that Chuck is proposing across the front of the property on the Centerville Riverside is pretty sufficient. Chuck, tell me what the size of these plants are. Are they 3, 4, 5 gallons? What are the plants that are going in there as to their size, and what's the density? Is it going to grow in and fill in over time? I'm sure it is. Let's get that question answered first, because I'm seeing up here on your notes, number 5. Is that the pot size? Is that number 3s and 5s are the pot size?
So I've just taken all this from past experience, but essentially like a number 5 is generally close to a 5-gallon pot. Number 3 is generally close to a 3-gallon pot. It's just how the nurseries label them.
Yeah.
So this is a 5-gallon inkberry holly. It's my recollection they grow up fairly large. I can't totally speak to the St. John's wort. I know that northern bayberry grow up. I've seen them grow up, quite large. I can't speak to how big a sweet fern grows. And then we have another northern bayberry. So we have I scroll up. So we have the 8 inkberry hollies that were previously proposed over here on the western side, on the Salt Marsh side, and then the 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 plants that we proposed on the buffer strip to the river that are all in the bubble right here.
Well, I'm back to what I remember, and I took notes on it that I have on my paper. That was let's call it I don't want to call it a trade-off. That was what the proposal was, coming in to change that, and I think that there was a strong consensus on the Centerville River frontage of the property that's where more vegetation could go. I don't want to take credit for suggesting it, but I know I did mention it. So I understand where John Abadili's coming from, and it's not so much a question of whether we can change things as much as whether or not the proposal is what was either consensually agreed to and or whether it's sufficient. And I'm not skillful enough when it comes to measuring plants to know that. But I do believe, as George stated, that what the changes are that Chuck has proposed is basically what we agreed to. So where that leaves us and where it leaves Lisa Cleary and where it leaves Sullivan Engineering, I don't know. But I support what Chuck has proposed. And the question is whether there's only four of us voting. So we've got to get, is it going to be a 2-2 tie or is it going to be a 3-1? What's it going to be? I don't know.
Well,
But
I can answer that. So with 4 of us voting, if it's a 2-2 tie, it does not pass.
no, I agree. I understand that.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it needs a 3
It
vote.
needs a 3-1. Yeah.
Right, correct.
Okay.
Okay, Ron had his hand up. Ron,
John?
I lowered my hand. I'd like to hear where Pete and Bill are coming from first.
okay, Pete,
So while I can't vote on this, I don't think we are wholly constrained by, quote, a consensus from a previous meeting. On more than one occasion, I have come back with higher expectations of the applicant and their agent in terms of protecting the environment. And I think John's observations are solidly right on.
Hey, Bill.
I'm a little fuzzy about where I'm at. The new plantings, are they not in the 0 to 50 over by the Centerville River in the southern area? I thought I was watching your presentation and it seemed like you were pointing. I had a hard time seeing exactly, but is it not in that southern end?
They are all in the 50-foot buffer and they are all on the southern end. So we have the salt marsh. These are the salt marsh flags, and then these are the plants right along the salt marsh that we have proposed them. These are all like directly abutting the salt marsh. And then we have these 5 plants up here that are actually going in lawn area. And all the plants that we have proposed are in the 50-foot buffer.
That being said, I mean, some of you were saying, yeah, you look at the film from last time. I did not. But my recollection, John, was that I thought, well, it's not enough mitigation. It just seemed like it didn't move me, if you will. There wasn't much mitigation. And that you, John, had said you were really interested in the Centerville River. And I thought it was the southern area you were trying to buffer. And so therefore, I guess I'm like thinking that what George and Larry are thinking is right, that what you wanted and that what we were looking for was a lot more planting in the southern end in that 0 to 50. And I think that he's doing what we wanted. That's my recollection.
John.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys, but to say that we reached a consensus at the last meeting is far from binding on us. It is far from saying we can't take a look at what's proposed and say, no, we want more. I can't fathom a concept that says, oh, well, we reached a consensus, so now we can't ask for more.
I'm not saying
I hope we're not saying that, because that would really strike me as not being correct. Larry, let me finish if I can. So what I'm looking at is that he's got like those 5 plants that he just pointed out. And I'm saying, well, at least put those along the riverfront. That's where we need them. If you went out there, when I was out there today, took a whole bunch of pictures, sent them to Darcy and said, well, right now he's got a couple of flower beds with irrigation all along that and very little vegetation. If there's a place that really needs enhanced vegetation, it's right there. It's all along that Centerville River on either side of where the dock is now. So I'm just in awe that says, especially Bill, when you say, okay, we're allowing some additional hardscape, we're allowing a hardscape change in the 50, on the water side. Boy, here's a chance where we should say to the applicant, we need to get more restoration of the 50 along that very sensitive area. And that's all I was coming from. That's it.
I agree. I think that something that we've talked about and kind of agreed with before having voted, as in when this came up last time, is not binding, and that in thinking about it and looking at the current proposal in the fullness of time, we're not stuck with that. We can change our minds and ask for something else, possibly more. So Chuck, would you want to rethink this a bit?
Luis, I want to have some comment too here.
Oh, all right, Larry.
First of all, I do not think that we're bound by a consensus, because there was no consensus. There was a clear discussion to guide Chuck and or John, whoever was here, as to where we were going. And I'm taking Chuck at his word. I think he's good faith when it comes to saying this is what he understood. However, I think John Abadili's suggestion or concept that the plantings on the right side a cluster of 5 new plants and so forth, I think that the area across the front could be denser. It could be more plants. It could be deeper and closer to the property, closer to the house. Maybe that would be one row of plants, and then maybe 2 or 3 feet further, closer to the house, another row. But I have no trouble with that. I don't think that's we're asking more. We're just asking for a higher degree of protection for the sensitive area. And looking at this area, let's face it, that's a very sensitive area that can be affected by high tides. It can be affected by storms, and it's really not exactly fertile area for plants. But nonetheless, it's an area that we are advocating be protected. We're also looking at a house, as I remember, that was built many, many years ago. So that house never would be positioned today if that came up. So that's what we're trying to fill in. So I don't want there to be any misunderstanding on the part of myself. I think that everybody else is talking about something similar. However, we tried to give the consultant some guidance, and I think in good faith, that's what he was doing. And so I don't want to misconstrue that, but that doesn't mean that we can't say, how about rearranging this or giving it a higher density of plantings, and that may be much more protection than we think we're getting at this time. That's the way I look at it.
So Chuck, you've heard what everyone had to say, and you know who's in the quorum. There may be one person who will mull it in, but would you want to?
So wait, who's in the quorum right now?
Excuse me, can I?
Yes.
Chuck, let me just, there was another issue that I put aside, but I'd like to bring up. You get the work limit line way far away, and I would like to see that work limit line moved up. I would also ask Darcy about the continuing irrigation system that is within this area that we're talking about. And I don't know if that irrigation system was approved or there or should be removed. So before Chuck, before you answered Louisa's questions, I was hoping just to address those other 2 little issues.
I'm not sure if the irrigation that was brought up in the enforcement order. I think Ed had mentioned those planting bed or whatever you saw was part of the enforcement order. And then Chuck was adding additional, beefing it up with additional plants, but that anything should be only temporary irrigation for the planting.
Okay. So Chuck, if you could look at that too. And then there was the work limit line, which was way, way down by that bed versus much bigger than necessary.
I would just like to say, as long as the property owner understands this is not going to be a planting bed, once it gets planted, you can have the mulch in there around the drip edges of the plants, but then it's got to go, you have your demarcation, and it's going to all fill in and have to be what nature does, what, takes place. So it's not going to look like a manicured planting bed that's currently there.
Which is currently there.
So it would fill into that demarcation markup on the plan.
Sure. So I just need to be, I'm having a hard time going to clients and telling them what I think is an approvable project and what is not an approvable project. I know historically that we have had houses that are in the 50-foot buffer, and we said, we're gonna, rob Peter to pay Paul a little bit, and we're gonna, take a patio out and make it a deck or a pool or a house. And typically this commission has approved projects of this nature that are in the 50-foot buffer that we haven't changed. And I know that, things change over time and people's opinions change, and now we have slightly different commissioners, but I know that we've had this, projects of this nature approved for years. And I came to a hearing, and it's like, we try to work with you guys, and then I take your comments. I think I addressed everyone's comments from the last hearing. So if things are not, what they seem to be, I'm having a hard time telling people what is approvable and what is not approvable. If I watch a hearing and I, tell a client like, hey, we got to go back, do X, Y, and Z. I come back, and then it's like, no, that's not what we meant at all, Chuck. So I'm still a little bit out of a loss as to what exactly you would need to have this project approvable, which I thought has been a very approvable project historically. With that being said, like, who are the four commissioners that?
So Chuck, the four commissioners are Commissioner Abadili, Hearn, Moran, and Gilmore.
So if I could request two things, if I could have exactly what you guys are looking for this project to be approved. And if
I could give you,
further
I can give you
continue.
an answer for myself. Can't
Perfect.
speak for anybody else. And out of respect, Bill has his hand up, I think, ahead of me, so.
Right.
I'd just like to provide my own personal perspective. When I looked at this project originally, I saw a hardscape that was basically going into the 0 to 50 buffer right off the house, a patio, like a patio extension or what have you. And in exchange, you were shaving off the hardscape on the driveway. And it was kind of a whatever, 1 for 1. Yeah, we're reducing hardscape there. So the math kind of comes out even. And it's a house that's sitting right on the Centerville River. And it has the potential, sewage issues and whatnot. And it's built right up against it, right up against the river. It's so close, and it wouldn't be approved today. And yet, under our guidelines, hey, you take away the driveway, parts of it in exchange for, and it's a 1-to-1, whatever. And it's like, I just felt like this, not to, poke at the owner, but it's like, you're not doing anything for the environment. This house is kind of right, like not anything that would be approvable, and it's not good, and we're not really getting anything. So John Abadili in the last meeting comes along and goes, hey, wait a minute, where this driveway, on the salt marsh is going in, it's not doing anything compared to this poor naked Centerville front. Can you do something and build it up there? And so you have made an offer, and it's like, yeah, you did. You did indeed do something over at the waterfront. And yet the project itself seems to be so, if you will, detrimental to the Centerville River and the environment and the resources, that I think that what I'm personally feeling is that, well, I'm hearing John and I'm thinking maybe it's not enough. We don't, you made an offer, but it's really not enough. So your question becomes, what's enough? What's enough? And I think that's a fair question, at which point I'll turn it over to John to perhaps provide a what's enough. Because I'm supportive of John's position that, maybe we're not getting much here.
I think, thank you, Bill. In answer to that, Chuck, first of all, I want to say this clearly. I think you came back with a very good faith analysis based on the prior meeting. I don't question that at all. I also understand in your role as a consultant, you want as much clarity as you can get. So when you go back to your clients, you could say, here's what you need to do in order to get an approval. And I respect that. And obviously I respect you and John O'Day and your firm exceedingly high. I mean, excellent work.
Yep.
However, I view these expansions within the 0 to 50, and I view the guidelines and the regulations, which say everything is site specific, to go down and look at it. And I spent a long time there today. And as I said, I took a bunch of pictures, sent them to Darcy, and raised some questions on the phone to her, et cetera. In fact, you were on the other line at the time, and she dissed me to talk to you. So I look at these and I say, under our guidelines and regulations, we need to understand every commissioner needs to reach a balance in his or her mind. Is the benefit to the 0 to 50 greater, so that we are getting more than we are, quote, giving up in terms of protecting that very valuable 0 to 50 zone? In this particular one, when the first proposal was just the driveway for the deck, I said, not even a chance, not even close to a benefit for the 0 to 50. So then you came back with this proposal And I think that's a great move. I would clearly take those bushes on the side and I would add them to the front. I would move the work limit line back, and I could probably and remove the irrigation. And Darcy said, let it grow naturally, maybe demarcate it, and then I could support it. So that's where I would come from in answer to your question. Again, just speaking for myself.
Okay, Larry.
I couldn't describe it better. I think that, and I'm going to give me a little latitude to revisit the enforcement order, because that's what got us there. There was a lot of vegetation along there that sprung roots along the ground, and they came up with spines on them. So this whole area became treacherous to walk in. They had to remove all of that, and they did. And in the process, they came along and put some replacement vegetation in there as part of the enforcement order. But I think that pulling the work limit line, and I'm trying to trace it along these things that look like bricks, move it back, let's say 5 to 6 feet in here somewhere, and letting this whole area be the area that gets focused on vegetation. Put vegetation in that's going to survive, because this in terms of growth and water coming in, everything. But I think if that's done, if the work limit's pulled back, if the vegetation from here to here is increased, whether it's just relocating this to do so, and if the irrigation is deemed to be temporary, have it so described as temporary. Right now, I don't remember there being irrigation in here, but I'm not disputing it, John, and I don't know where you saw it. And a lot of course, it's underground. So I think that John's approach, if you come back and say, this is what I'll recommend Lisa Cleary to do, then we don't need a continuance. We just need to come back with a revised plan. That's the way I'm seeing it, and that's what I would encourage.
Bill?
Yeah, I don't know if I have to state this or not, but we want to also, you want to continue to retain the removal of that driveway section and planting along that marsh along the western side. You still want to continue to do that. It's not like, oh, now we're going to plant down here. Well, we don't have to worry about the driveway. We're doing the driveway too.
That was my thinking as well, Bill. I certainly didn't mean to say that was eliminated. It's still part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, Chuck, do you want to confer with your clients?
Sure. After the November 1st,
The next slot for continuance is the 22nd of November.
perfect.
No, that's not a date, Louise.
What?
That's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. There's no hearings that day. It's the 8th and 15th.
On the
Let me see, I have a note from Kim saying that.
Oh, we do have the 22nd available.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that was intentionally not booked, so you'd have it Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So my schedule shows 1, 8, and 15, and 29. Those are the dates that we had.
Yeah.
Chuck, if you're willing, and maybe you can't, if you're willing to make the moves that Bill and Larry and I suggested now, then I think we could vote on it tonight. But if you're not willing to do that, or not able to do that, not able to do that, you need to confer, then take the continuance. That's your call.
So, are you saying move work limit, remove irrigation, and relocate these 8 proposed inkberry into the buffer strip?
Yes, and then as Darcy added, that this would become a natural, that the irrigation is temporary, it would become a natural. And I don't know, Darcy, if you need demarcation.
There is.
Yeah. Yes, I think the most important thing is we have an agreement on what is the width that you're increasing this buffer strip? Because everybody talks about moving the work limit line and increasing the buffer strip, but what is it? How much is it do you want him to increase the width, or like the measurement off the demarcation there? How much more do you want him to increase that? I think you need to have that.
Yeah, I think it needs to be documented in a plan, and I get feeling kind of nervous just describing it in words.
If you want me to approve it, you need to state a width
Yeah.
from,
So my understanding is that it was going inside the existing buffer strip,
That was my understanding too,
and that it
Darcy.
was not taking up any more lawn.
It's got about a 4 foot, he's got about a 4 foot strip there, but it has no plants. It's got little flowers growing in it. It's got irrigation heads sticking out of it. If he could put all these plants in that area, demarcate it, make the irrigation temporary, move the work limit line up much closer to the work area.
Well, how much? I mean, you know,
What, the work limit line?
I think.
Make it 5 feet off the proposed expanded porch.
I was hoping for a little bit more, but I think that we're generally in like, fairly consensus. I'd rather have a 7 foot, but
Fine, 7 foot, we're not.
Well, Chuck, what's the difference from the edge of the deck to the work limit? Looks like 10, maybe 12 feet, maybe. What's the distance there?
let me pull open my plan right here. So presently we have about 12 feet, and so I'll make it about 7. So 7 feet would be about 2 of those hay bales that I have shown on here. So if these are all hay bales, it would be about.
Okay, so if you went,
want,
if you went 7 feet from the new front of the new patio towards the water, that would be your work limit line and or your line where the plantings would go. Is that correct? Is that what is that the way you'd interpret it?
So the way I interpret it is that the work limit line would be 7 feet off the patio, and the plants would go in this existing buffer strip down here, seaward of the.
That was my understanding too, Larry.
Okay. Okay.
so
So, Louise, let me go. This is turning into talk radio. We've got this distance this way, which is depth. Now the width is probably, I'm going to guess, probably 40 to 50 feet across the front here. Do we want all of this vegetated? So we're looking at a distance of 7 feet off. Let's give it 8 feet for the work limit, and then 40 feet across the front. If we agree with that, then he comes back with a revised plan that shows it. That's what I'm trying to clarify. If anybody else wants to talk, it's their turn with their hand up.
well, let me see. We're voting on that, or he's coming back?
No, I'm asking Chuck to say what he wants to do. If he's willing to make that, and if John Abadili and Bill agree with that definition or that clarification.
You just said he's coming back with a revised plan, and I'm wondering, is this revised plan after we have had a vote or for a vote?
It can be either. It can be either. I think that it's conditioned upon a revised plan. We have not historically said we're a revised plan. We don't see the revised plans again. So in this case, now we're trying to compel him to produce that. Where are we on this?
I don't know what you're proposing, Larry.
I'm saying if Chuck agrees to revise the plan to show the approximate dimensions of the increased planting area, not planting bed, but the planting area, and the revised plan comes back and shows that, that's good faith. He's done it. That's what we usually do. But in this particular case, to say we're worried about it, I never worry about a thing Sullivan Engineering does. We're just trying to help them make it clear. That's where I am on it.
I think there's a landscape architect involved, and he definitely much wants to be able to review this and talk about it with me. So, and it sounds like this is kind of getting.
Okay,
it
Chuck.
Sounds like everyone would be more comfortable looking at a revised plan. So
if you are,
okay
that's fine.
Yeah.
Right. Peter has his hand up.
Yeah, Pete has something to say.
Yeah, a work limit line, it just means you can't go, it doesn't mean you're increasing the vegetation area. It just means that's the limit of your work. So my understanding, listening to all of you talk about this on your talk radio show stuff here, is that Abadili had a great idea. You just take those higher inkberries and those taller things, bring them down in front, but put them in the buffer area that you'd already agreed on. Don't take more lawn away. Just move the buffer, just move the work limit line so that you're not wrecking any of the lawn as you work. Is that my understanding, Abo?
Absolutely, 100% clear. And I thought that's what would make Chuck happy, would make his customer happy, and we could vote on that and he could get on with life. That's what I thought.
Does that work for you, Chuck?
Sure.
Okay.
Me
John, why
too.
don't you make a motion?
Okay, all
Okay.
right, let's make a motion.
Do we need
Approve this, a motion to
Public comment?
public comment first? Yeah.
Seeing none.
Tim.
No,
You
no
said
public
no
comment.
public comment.
Let's see. A motion to accept this proposal with the proviso that the mitigation in the northwest corner be moved to the area along the Centerville River, and that there be annual reports required for the next 3 years, and that the work limit line be moved closer to the structure being proposed.
Louise, if I could jump in on that motion before it's made, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
What we're saying is that those plants along the right side be relocated to the existing buffer area or planting area in front of the Centerville River. Right, Chuck?
Yep.
Secondly, that the irrigation that there is temporary, it should be removed after 3 years. Thirdly, that there'd be demarcation of that area. Fourthly, that there would be, in fact, that area would be left natural and not become a landscape planted area, as Darcy suggested. And finally, that the work limit line be moved to 7 feet off the proposed work. And that would be subject to receipt of a revised plan showing those conditions.
All right, do we have a second?
Second,
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
aye.
Moore.
Aye.
That is unanimous.
Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for working with me.
Hey, Chuck, again, I just really got to say for the record, I understand where you're coming from. Please, it's not, my words were in no way to impugn what you came back with. I think it was a great, good faith effort in your part. And if there was a misunderstanding, I'm glad we talked it through.
Cool, man. Thank you very much for working with me.
Have a good night.
You as well.
Okay. Our last continuance is Christian Camp Meeting Association proposed relocation of existing beach stand under and around structure within the coastal beach at 915 Craigville Beach Road, Centerville, as shown on Assessor's Map 225, parcel 1, or sorry, parcel 001. And we were waiting for an NHESP letter, which came in today. The concern is the shorebirds, specifically the piping plover, have been known to inhabit that area, and therefore they would want to see the following happen. That the time of year would be restricted, and the relocation of the sand shall not occur during the period of April 1st through August 31st. That the sand relocation and redistribution shall be evenly distributed at a grade not steeper than 10 horizontal, 1 vertical, reduced grades each 15 high, 1 vertical are approved. state listed species protection, the property owner and or applicant have the responsibility of protecting breeding piping plovers and state listed species of terns that may be on this section of the beach. Authorization duration, this is good for 5 years from the date of issuance, and notice upon filing for renewal, extension, or amendment of the orders of conditions, the applicant shall contact the division for written response regarding impacts to the resource area habitats of state listed wildlife. So that's what the NHESP letter says. Are we feeling that
Commissioners eligible to participate or to vote again are Abadili, Gilmore, Hearn, and Moran.
I've got a comment to make, but at your convenience.
Oh, I'm sorry, and Louise is,
I was there.
Louise was on this one too. I'm sorry, Louise.
Yeah. Okay, Larry.
I don't remember, and my memory can be flawed. I don't remember a specific layout of the habits of plover that appeared in this letter. I'm not critical of it. I just don't remember seeing it. And I'm very familiar with this project. A good friend of mine was the construction foreman at that property for years, so I know what they deal with. So it seems to me that normally we routinely could close out a matter with once the NHESP letter arrives. I have no objection to that, but I do think that since this applicant, since the consultant is out of Plymouth and they're not on this Zoom with us, I don't believe.
They are.
Are they?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
good
they
evening,
are.
Commission. This is Cameron Larson.
Oh,
representing the
perfect. Great. I'm glad you're here. I was afraid you wouldn't. Are you comfortable with accepting these conditions, which to me are more enumerated than I've seen before? But do you feel that the CMA can go forward with the CBA can go forward with this comfortably?
Both myself and the applicant have reviewed this. I don't think there's really any way around the time of year restriction. That was the biggest concern with the applicant. They just wanted to make sure that they had enough time during the year. In regards to the grading of the site, it's going to, the applicant's moving some sand, but they're going to be able to keep it very level out there. I think historically they've had shorebird monitors out there. That condition doesn't seem like an issue. And then, of course, they have the 5-year duration for this permit. I see that, most commonly. So I don't see any issues on our end, unless the commission was willing to waive the time of year restriction. I just don't expect that that's going to be something that Natural Heritage would appreciate.
No, I'm not. I'm very glad you're here to clarify that. If I'd known that in advance, I probably wouldn't even have brought it up. But the fact that you're here is fine. So that was my concern, that I thought these were more detailed requirements than I'm familiar with. It doesn't mean other commissioners haven't seen it, but I just was not. So I'm fine with it. Other commissioners may have thoughts about it, but otherwise I'm fine with it.
Pete. Peter.
Yeah. George, can you please check? I think I'm on.
I was just, I got my hand up. I was mistaken. Everybody is eligible for this hearing. My bad.
Yay, everybody.
Yep.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve this application as submitted?
With the conditions imposed
By the NHESP.
right, NHESP. So moved.
Yes, I could.
If I may, before we move to a vote, I just wanted to bring up one last point. We kind of toyed around with the idea that last meeting regarding, coming up with a way to, somehow create the ability for the applicant to complete this work in perpetuity, or, extending the permit when it comes time. I don't know if the commission has given that any more thought. We'll have the permit for 3 years. I think the applicant would be willing to, request an extension at that point. They will, of course, have to go back to natural heritage after 5 years. I just didn't know if any of the members had given that any more thought.
We've talked about it. But I think as you describe, it's unless someone else has another idea at this point, it's every 3 years for us and every 5 for natural heritage. Darcy, you want to comment on that?
We would just treat it like one of the regular ones where you get a chance to extend it at least twice. Sometimes the commission is a little uncomfortable doing at the 3rd year extension. We don't extend it more than 3 times. And they would definitely have to, if they came in for an extension, show that I guess it would be like a second extension, that they have received approval again after the 5 years for the NHESP. But I don't know of any other one that you would let it go more than three extensions.
Do we need to quantify that, Darcy? Because you got a 3 and a 5 year interval. In other words, if they came in before the end of the first 3 year term and extended it another 3, then that's going to get them into the 5 year.
Yeah.
But then at the end of that, they got to come back and request another one. That gets them to 9, but it doesn't cover 10 years. So
I think we're stuck with that, Larry. You know, we've got
I agree.
we got
That's
this
why I'm
kind of
asking you.
3-year thing, and they got a 5 year, so they're just out of sync. That the applicants got to deal with
They
that.
are, but at least they'd get 2 bites out of the apple, and then
Yeah.
they'd come back.
I guess in the second extension,
Really.
the second extension, you would just have to state that they have to submit
Yeah.
for the
Right.
record that they've asked NHESP.
And received approval.
Yeah.
Right.
There's nothing we can do about that, Darcy. We're stuck with that.
Right.
All right.
And I
So,
think that's perfectly appropriate. And I just wanted to, make sure we were all on the same page. So that's helpful. Thank you.
so we had a second, is that correct? Did someone second this?
I will.
Okay. Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Lee. Oh, Lee's not here, excuse me. Warren,
Aye.
Sampo. That's unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you very much, Commission. Have a good night.
We have 5 certificates of compliance. All of them are William F. Griffin Jr., trustee of New Brushy Marsh Realty Trust. SE 35080, SE 35137, SE 353, SE 35396, and SE 34747. Do you,
Motion to approve the certificates of compliance.
do I have a second?
Second,
Roll call.
Sampo,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Lee, not here. Hearn,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Foster,
Aye,
Abadili,
Aye.
unanimous.
thank you. And we have 3 sets of minutes, September 27th, 2022, October 4th, 2022, and October 11th, 2022.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as submitted.
Right,
Second.
roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye,
Hearn,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Sampo,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. That's unanimous.
do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I just state one thing, just for clarification? On Washington Nominee Trust, we did give it November 1st continuance. We shouldn't have given them that date of an option. It's an afternoon hearing. It's a mistake we made staff-wise. But, so just so you know, we don't usually have continuances
Right,
on
and that's
afternoon
the need.
meetings. It's too late. We've given it to them, so I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay,
Unless they request a continuance after that to a night
Right,
meeting.
right. But our mistake on our end for offering the first.
okay. All right, someone proposed an adjournment. Did anyone second it?
Second.
Okay, propose, you can propose it. And second it.
Well,
I'll second it.
I made
Better
the
than that.
proposal.
Mhm.
go ahead, Sam, Pooh, speak up.
I made the proposal.
And I seconded it,
Oh,
Gilmore, not you.
okay, all right.
Cavalieri,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Lee. Lee is not here. Moore,
Aye.
Sam Poe. It's getting late.
My God, bye.
We're
Okay,
adjourned at 8:24.
thank you. Our
Not a minute too early.
You're right.
next meeting is November 1st at 3:00.
Okay, good night, Kim. Good night, Darcy.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Silly committee.